قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا وما جعلنا القبلة التي كنت عليها إلا لنعلم من يتبع الرسول ممن ينقلب على عقبيه وإن كانت لكبيرة إلا على الذين هدى الله وما كان الله ليضيع إيمانكم إن الله بالناس لرؤوف رحيم. I think it's impossible to be unaware of what's going on in the world and to not be affected by the criminal acts that are taking place against Muslims at the hands of non-Muslims and the criminal acts that are taking place against Muslims at the hands of Muslims themselves. And these tragedies are something that growing up as a Muslim is actually become a regular part of our life. So we've seen, those of you that have come up in the last 30, 40, 50 years, the last half century or more has just been one crisis of the ummah after another, after another, after another. And at some point, a person experiences some sort of, numbness, like they're just, oh, here we go again. And here's another one, and here's another one. And there are so many places on fire, and there's so much state of emergency, like what is happening in our beloved Filistin at the moment, that the frustration on the one hand, the helplessness and the hopelessness on the other hand, what are we even supposed to do, can become overwhelming. A lot of people ask me to speak on this, to talk about what I think about Palestine, or to talk about what I think is happening in the Ummah. And I actually remained silent for some time. I didn't say anything. And actually, this khutbah isn't going to be about that. I decided to gather my thoughts first, because my first reaction was, I have felt this before. I have seen this reaction from the Ummah before. In fact, I've seen it in a cycle, almost seasonally, right? And we have been in this exact place over and over again. So being outraged and praying for our bleeding Ummah is known. Everybody knows, everybody feels those feelings, and everybody prays those prayers. And everybody helps and contributes to whatever humanitarian causes they can. And everybody has the outcry that they always have. Outcries against Muslim countries that are not doing enough, outcries against the United Nations, outcries against the United States, outcries against the perpetrators like Israel, etc., etc., etc. We've done all of this already. And it's fine and I feel those sentiments, I do. But I also feel like that's not enough. I also feel like we've been doing that for quite some time. And it's deeply hurtful and frustrating that we are in the same exact place, if not worse, as time goes by. So I wanted to at least, not just vent the anger and express the same emotions, but at least just try to take a step back and think about what is it that we as an ummah need to think about. Often my khutb talk about, and they have been over the last couple of years, have been talking about individual empowerment, how a person needs to strengthen their faith, how a person needs to rise above whatever traumatic experiences they've had. Because our religion is actually, on the one hand, highly personal. It does empower an individual. It is about your iman and your story and your life and your meeting with Allah and your connection to Allah's book and your connection to Allah's Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's your dealings and your family and your business and your finances and your zakat and your salah. It's very individual on the one hand, but on the other hand, we are also given this sense that we belong to something bigger than ourselves and just our families and our community. We belong to an ummah. We belong to something much bigger. And this thing that we belong to, this entity that we belong to, it transcends ethnicities. We may not even speak the same language. The only thing we have in common is La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that's it. That's enough. That's enough. We can be from completely different cultures, backgrounds, ethnicities, and lifestyles, even like culturally. We could be completely different from each other, but there's a bond that we have that connects us together. This book of Allah connects us together, right? So there is a sense of ummah. And that's why we have a collective pain at what is happening with the Uyghur Muslims. We have a collective pain at what happened in the 90s with the Kosovans and the Bosnians. We have a collective pain. What's been happening over the last half century and more with Palestine, and what's happening in Afghanistan, and it's been happening, and what's happening in Yemen has been happening. What happened with the Rohingya Muslims? What happened to the Muslims in Sri Lanka when the riots broke out and the Buddhist extremists went to town? What's happened to Muslims in India and in Gujarat? We like, and in Kashmir, and the list is pretty big. It's very, very big. But we as an ummah, what does it mean to be part of this ummah? And I wanted to take a step back from the fires that are burning and just turn to Allah's book and just find something at least. And I don't claim to have the answers. I will give you that disclaimer. If any one of us had the answer, we wouldn't be here where we are right now. So the assumption that somebody has the answer and will know what to do exactly is presumptuous, right? But we do have to turn to Allah for answers. We have to turn to Allah's book for at least something. This khutbah is actually about the definition of, some expectations Allah has of us for being an ummah. What does it mean that He's made us into an ummah? He actually declared us one in Surah Al-Baqarah. Among other places, this is probably the most pivotal place, one of the most powerful places in the middle of Surah Al-Baqarah, the longest surah of the Quran, where He declared, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا, and that is how we made you an ummah. They say, the translations often say a middle nation or a balanced nation. Wasat meaning the word balance, but actually it's a masdar. So it would mean a nation that is characterized by balance itself. It's not ummatan mutawassitatan, that would be a sifa. But the sifa here is a masdar, which is actually the hyperbolized form. Without getting too technical, it actually means you have been made into a nation that if anybody looks at you, the first thing that comes in their mind is balanced. Just let that sink in for a moment. Allah said, you and I have been made a nation that are almost like the definition of balance itself. The definition of balance itself. And balance is an important theme in the world. It's actually associated with justice.